If you haven't seen my previous videos, I bought this 2023 M4 Competition and the same day somebody set it on fire. It was a complete burnt out mess. Absolutely everything was destroyed, so I wasted no time stripping the car bare to its shell, removing absolutely everything. I even had to remove both of the chassis legs and the strut tower assemblies as they were made out of aluminium, so they had both melted. That left the car looking like this. So in today's video we're going to make some work on the massively damaged rear quarter as well as installing the two new chassis legs.
Alright, today is a very important day because the shell that you see here is finally going to look like a car again, because I've got the two chassis legs here, and right now this might look like what on earth is going on, but just bear with me and I'm going to explain everything that's happening to this. So these are the two chassis legs which sit there and there. I'll insert a little video. I've already fitted them all up with all the bracings to make sure everything lines up, and then I've prepped all of the surfaces where all of the metals touch each other. So these are finally prepped, ready to go in. The BMW repair procedure suggests to use this panel bond, which is basically like a concrete glue which sticks the metal together. And then on top of that, you use rivets. We've got these rivets here, which are really heavy duty, strong rivets. And in all of these holes you can see here, they'll all be drilled out bigger, and it holds it together to the car. So it uses panel bond and rivets. And obviously I've inserted the clip where you can see that everything lines up. So now it's just go time. And it's 6:30 p.m. It's my birthday, but we're just gonna crack on with it. I wanna get this done today. This is probably the most important thing to get right. So I've prepped everything as much as I can, and it's just go time.
Here's another view of all of the bracings bolted in. So it's sort of an up, down, left and right alignment with all of the braces bolted in, because not only does it go from the subframe up to the panel that goes across the two chassis legs, it also then triangles across with this piece here. So it literally can't be wrong. We did have to tap the threads in these two holes on the new chassis leg, which I got from BMW. I guess they don't tap these holes themselves from factory. So now with the thread tapped, you can see that this bolt will just screw down into that hole perfectly fine. And then we just have to repeat this on the other hole because there's two of them that we had to do. So now we can actually properly bolt down this triangular bracing. It screws in on both of the shock towers with two bolts at the back that you can see here. And then also where it meets in the middle at that cross member which goes across the two chassis legs at the top, it bolts in there. And what we're doing here is making sure every single bolt hole is exactly in the middle. This just makes sure that nothing's off center, and if everything's in the middle, it's just going to be lined up a lot better. This also lets us have more adjustment later if everything's centralized. So now that we were happy with how everything lined up, we just need to take all of the bracings back off. I've got to take the subframe off as well and take the chassis legs out too. In all of the places where the chassis legs are going to touch the rest of the car, the glue needs a good surface to stick against. So in all of those areas, I need to sand down and clean up all of the surfaces. So not only did I need to clean up all the surfaces on the car side, I also have to do it on the two new chassis legs. So here you can see I'm cleaning up all of the mating surfaces. This is the brand new one. On the second-hand one, I did also have to drill out the rivet holes a little bit bigger. Now I had to do the same on this bracket which attaches to the chassis leg before it has to go on the car. All of these holes are drilled out to 6.8mm, which is what was specified in the BMW repair procedure. And that's so the rivets that you can see here slide into those holes perfectly snug. So I've cleaned up all the surfaces on both of the chassis legs where all of the panel bond's going to have to go, because it needs contact from metal to metal. So I've cleaned up the car side and also all of the bits on the chassis legs. Also on this bracket as well, I've done the inside of that. And every time I've drilled a hole for the rivets to go in, so this will go in there and the rivets go in like that. Like so. So they go into all them holes, and I just need to put panel bond between all of those. So now I drilled all of the holes in that bracket. I actually have to drill extra holes for where the spot welds need to go, because it's in quite a hard to reach area, this bracket. So I'm just drilling all the holes first so that once it's installed on the chassis leg and the chassis leg's installed on the car, the holes are already going to be there for the spot welds. So I'm not going to have any difficulty drilling the holes because they've already been drilled, and we can just spot weld all of those holes straight away. So now it's on with the glue. This is the BMW structural panel bond, which needs to be applied to all the surface area of the car where it's going to meet the chassis leg. So you can see here, these are sort of the bits on the car where the leg slides into. And there's also the upper bit where the shock tower meets. This is all of the places where the rivets are going to go. So anywhere where the steel meets aluminium, it needs to use panel bond and rivets. Alright, so I've applied the panel bond on all of the mating surfaces here, you can see, and I'm quite happy with the amount that I've put on there, and I've also put some more on to both of the chassis legs, and now I've just got to really hurry because I need to get these on before it starts to dry. Right, so I'm going to slide this leg in first. So this one goes in here. That's one in. Now the green one next. So now, if you remember at the start of the video, I showed you when we lined everything up. Now I need to put the subframe back on and all the bracings on, get everything lined up, and then start to put all the rivets in. So now that the subframe's on and both the legs are in, I just need to put the bracings across the top. So then that makes sure everything's lined up, and I'm going to tighten everything up properly so everything's snug. And then I'm going to start to put all the rivets in so that nothing can move. Obviously, once I've got everything bolted up, it all is going to be stuck in place. This brace comes up from the subframe, and it actually screws into this one that goes across the top. And then on top of that, the one that comes across from the shock towers comes to the middle here as well. So the way that the bracings work on this car is basically like an up, down, left, right alignment. So nothing can possibly be wrong if all of these bolt holes are all in the center. So I'm going to move them all to be right in the center of every hole. Then it's definitely all going to be bang on where it should be. This is the last bolt that I'm putting in. Honestly, if anyone has any problems with the way I've done this, I don't want to hear it, because there's no way you can tell me that this isn't square, because everything bolts up exactly where it's supposed to be. So there's no way it could possibly be wrong. So now what I'm doing here is I'm just tapping all of the metal flat at all of the mating surfaces. This is just so that when the rivets go in, they have a nice flat surface to clamp onto. Right, I've messed up so badly. I'm actually such an idiot. I didn't charge my camera, so I'm in the middle of putting the rivets in now, and my camera's died. So I'm just gonna have to walk you through what I'm doing. So obviously I've put all the bracings in, and now I'm just putting each rivet in. So you can see I'm starting to go around. I'm just gonna put a few in to basically hold it in place, and then I'm gonna take all this back off so I can actually get in there. But yeah, basically everything's lined up, and I'm just putting all the rivets in now. I've put some of them in here. You can see them there. And I've done some on this side as well. I've also done these ones down here. So they're all going in now. All right, so now that I've got all these rivets tacked in, I'm going to remove this brace just so I can step
back inside and get the rest of the rivets put on.
So now that I've got quite a few rivets in the chassis legs and they can't go anywhere, I've removed the bracings and I'm also going to remove the subframe just to give me access to step inside the engine bay, because most of the rivets are in the engine bay, and obviously with the subframe on, I can't get inside of there.
So because of the design of this rivet gun, I can't reach the holes here, so I'm going to have to get a different gun for those. But just to make sure all the glue sets, so the panels are squeezed together, I'm just going to put some self-tapping screws in all the holes for now. And obviously I'll take them out afterwards and I'll just drill them bigger and put the rivets in. But for now, just to make sure everything is squeezed together, I'm just going to put self-tapping screws in. And in some of the places where the metal's bent out from where I've bent it before, I'm going to do the same thing with these, because it's basically the same as just putting an extra rivet in, but I'm just doing it to make sure all the glue is nice and pinched together.
So in some places, I wasn't completely happy with how the metal was sitting against each other, so I've used self-tapping screws to just nip the metal together. This makes sure that the glue has maximum contact against the metal, because obviously if there's any gaps, the glue isn't going to sit properly. This also helped the rivets to go in quite a bit easier, because obviously the less gap there is between the panels, the easier the rivet's going to pull together. And as I'm going around with the rivets, I just keep tapping the metal down to make sure everything comes back flat. On each chassis leg, there's actually a rivet on the underneath here, so I didn't miss that rivet on the bottom. You can see when I tap this metal down here, how the glue just sort of oozes out a bit. So it just gives you an idea of how much better it's making the glue sit. Now, I even installed some self-tappers in places like this where I just wasn't happy with how it was sitting, and I only ordered enough rivets for all the holes that I needed, so I actually had to go back and buy some more rivets, and I'm going to replace all of these holes where the self-tapping screws are going with more rivets. I thought it's better to just put some extra rivets in just to make it even stronger. Now, some rivets didn't seat perfectly fine, so for example this one here, I've just drilled it out and then I'm knocking the rest of it out and I'm just going to replace this rivet completely. So I did do this for some more rivets. Again, you can see here, once those self-tapping screws go in, you can just see the glue oozing out the edge, and this is exactly what we want. But don't worry about the self-tapping screws, because they're all going to be replaced with extra rivets. For some hard to reach places, I had to go and buy this different rivet gun. You can see it sort of pulls back and forward. So in these little narrow spots, it was a lot better to use this one. In case you're wondering how the rivets actually work, here's a little view of the underside of when I'm pushing on the rivet gun. You can see how the rivet pulls up here and creates a little lip which squeezes the metal together. Now, I have a lot more self-tapping screws to remove and replace with rivets, so that's what I'm doing here. Just removing all the self-tapping screws, drilling all the holes bigger, putting the rivets in. Wow, go then, man. Yes! Yeah, boy. You can see here just how well all of these rivets have pulled together. If you look in the little center bit, where that's flush means the rivet has pulled together very well. And here you can see all the undersides of how well they're all gripped, so they're not going anywhere. Now, if you remember at the start of the video, these little brackets, which I drilled all the holes for, this is where they have to be spot welded together because the part of the chassis which this bracket is touching is also steel. So because it's steel to steel contact, we need to weld rather than use rivets and glue. And also where all of the holes were for the spot welds, I made sure to clear out all of the glue just so that the weld could stick properly. There was also 2 spot welds which needed to be done up here, which is on the inner wing section. So it's been a few days now since we put the chassis legs in with the rivets and the panel bond. And obviously I needed some more rivets, which I ordered from BMW, and I've got these now. I actually got 30 more rivets. So initially I counted up all the holes and there's 74 holes. So I got 80 rivets, but then I ended up wasting a few of them. And then obviously everywhere where I've drilled all the extra self-tapping screws, I'm going to replace all of those with rivets. So that's why I've bought 30 more, because there's going to be a lot more rivets in here than there was from factory. And I don't care if people think that's not what I should do. That's what I want to do, because I think a few more rivets here and there will just make it that little bit stronger. And that's probably a lot better than worse, I would say. Like in here, you can see all of those rivets, which are all in the factory spots. So I've just used the self-tapping screws there to just squeeze that metal back to the chassis leg so that the glue would settle nicely, because you can see there, they're all really flush. What I'm going to do now is just remove all them self-tapping screws, and I'm just going to replace them with rivets, because I could just leave the self-tapping screws in, but I think that's a bit naff. And then I could just take them out, but then there'll be a hole there. And if there's going to be a hole, I think it's better to just put the extra rivets there, because it's not going to do any harm. And you can see in here, the underside of all the rivets, how well they've all pinched. So you can see they're all seated literally perfectly. All of them up there as well. They're all perfectly sat. So I'm unbelievably happy with how this has went, to be honest. It's literally perfect. Like, I've got 1,000,000% confidence in these 2 chassis legs, and it was the biggest thing I was worried about, because obviously I've not done gluing and riveting structural pieces before, but honestly it's went sweet. So I'm going to crack on now removing the rest of these self-tapping screws. We've got a couple more here, and I've got one down there and one there. I'm just going to replace them all with rivets, and then once that's done, we can sealer it all. And obviously once I sealer it all, they're all going to be covered anyway. Like, all of this is going to have seam sealer everywhere, so you're not even going to see the rivets. But obviously I've showed the whole internet. But yeah, I think just putting the extra rivet here and there is going to do more good than harm. So that is what I'm deciding to do. So I'm just going to give you a little close-up of what I'm actually doing, just in case you don't understand, so you can just get a better idea of what we're actually doing here. I feel like people don't go much into detail when they're doing these kind of repairs, but I would like to know the details. So for the few people out there that want to know, here we go. So I'm just removing these self-tappers, and then I'm going to drill this hole. This is actually a 6.8mm drill bit, which is what was specified on the BMW repair procedure. It said it had to be 6.8mm, because I'm assuming that these rivets, one second, that this is 6.8mm. So if I show you up to the hole here, this hole that I've just drilled, obviously that goes in there perfectly, 6.8mm. And now I can just put the rivet gun on. There we go. Oh my god, it takes so much force. Woohoo! Jesus! It's hard to do this sat down. I'm going to remove all these self-tappers. So now I'm just going to repeat the same thing that I just done on the other chassis leg, and I'm going to make sure both sides are symmetrical, so I'm putting the same amount of rivets in the same place on both sides. And on the other side of this chassis leg, I have a lot of self-tapping screws that I have to replace with rivets here. Once again, just drilling all the holes bigger, putting a rivet in the hole, and then using the rivet gun to squeeze the rivet together. There was about 6 more that I have to replace here. So now that's all of the rivets installed on the chassis legs, but there still was a few more rivets which I had to replace in the upper sections, which you can see we do in here.
Oh, there's one down there as well. You think we should put any more, like there or whatever?
No.
No? That is
already got more than factory anyway.
I know, that's enough anyway.
Now there was just 2 final rivets which I had to install on the driver's side strut tower. You can see here I'm doubling them up as well. From factory there's only 2 rivets in this little location, but I've decided to just put another 2 in there just to make it that little bit stronger. And on the driver's side chassis leg there was just 3 more that I had to do. And then we put 1 more just here on the shock tower just to make it symmetrical with the driver's side. And now that was all of the rivets finally installed, so I was just blowing everything off with the airline, and then now I can start to mask up where I want the seam sealer to go. So I'm just using the masking tape to create sort of a line for the seam sealer, so then when I peel the tape away it looks somewhat tidy. But this didn't go very well, you will see. I already know I'm going to get some serious flack in the comments for my seam sealer job, but there's honestly nothing I can do about it. It's so hard to lay it on well. I feel like I've done an alright job of it for doing it for my first time, but yeah, it was not the best. But it doesn't matter, it's going to serve its purpose, and that's all that matters. So now all of that seam sealer has actually dried, so I'm going to give you a little look of what it looks like now. You can see it's actually quite smooth in places where it's dried. Places like this are quite ugly, but I'm going to try to tidy that up because it's just where it meets the other seam sealer. But these are the bits that you're going to see more importantly, and I'm quite happy with how neat it is, to be honest. Obviously I've never done this before, so everything about this is a learning curve. Like, I've never put seam sealer on before. I've never used panel bond and rivets. So now if I was to do this all again, I think I would do a better job of it, but I'm still 100% confident in the job that I've done. Like, I've not done anything wrong. It just, the seam sealer isn't perfectly pretty, but this is something you're never gonna get right. Like, a robot does it from the factory, so any human doing it is never going to be great. And because I have so much seam sealer to do, like I've had to do the full bulkhead, all the chassis legs, like you're just never going to match it in that amount of seam sealer. If you were only replacing this section and say this was all the seam sealer you had to do, then yeah, I can see how you'd maybe spend like an hour or 2 with a brush trying to get it perfect. But like, this car isn't an original factory car anymore. There's no hiding that fact, so it doesn't have to look factory to sealer, so I'm not really bothered about it at all, as long as it serves its purpose, which is exactly what it's doing. But yeah, all that's important and all that matters is that it's doing its job, and you can see it's all covered there. And obviously once it's all painted, it's going to look miles better. But you can see it doesn't look horrendous, I wouldn't say, but it's definitely not the best. There's even rivets through this little hole, and I've seam sealed those as well. So I've just went and added a bit more seam sealer in places where I thought that it needed it. And to get the underside of this car fully prepared for paint, I need to take everything off. So I need to take the sound deadening off, the prop shaft, the rear subframe, the fuel tank, all of these metal under trays and stuff, the rear crash bar, everything needs to come off because we're going to paint the full underside in colour. You can see where it's not painted from the factory. I thought I may as well paint mine because we're going to have the chance to. So it's actually going to be painted better than any car will be from factory, which is going to be quite nice. But yeah, I'm going to have to get all of this stripped off now. I don't have my camera, so I'm not going to be able to record it, but I'll just click my fingers and then all of this is going to be removed. So I've removed absolutely everything off the car, the rear subframe, the fuel tank, the fuel lines, everything out the boot, all of the wiring that was left, like the fuse boxes, all of the trims, and I've cleaned it up as best as I can. And it's actually a bit of a shame because I've lost my footage, but 8 of us actually picked the car up and we just walked it into the paint booth and put it on some trestles. Now it's in the paint booth and Connor could put it into primer. We've just painted the engine bay. And we still need to change that rear quarter, so we're going to get the car out of the paint booth now. Then they need to pull the dent out of the rear quarter as much as they possibly can. Then we can start to cut the rear quarter off, and once that's done, Connor can finally paint the whole shell, and then it'll be ready to put back together. Cheers. It's mad how small it is. It's on the deck, it's tiny. Literally chest height. No. Underneath. It's like ribs.
Top me abs. No.
When we're doing this quarter, like Andy tonight. Now straight away the lads got to work on the magic on getting this dent out of this rear quarter as much as they possibly can. So here he's just using the porter power to just sort of push it out, and then I think they're using a block of wood here and a big sledgehammer to just push that block of wood as much as they possibly can, and you can see it coming out quite a lot. And it's crazy just already after this probably took them about 5 or 10 minutes how much that is pulled out compared to how pushed in it was before. It's crazy. And then they're just using a slide hammer here, getting creative, getting it through these little holes and just using the slide hammer to pull out as much of the metal as they can. Now the reason why we had to do this instead of just cutting the quarter off straight away is because once they've pushed this quarter out back to where it's supposed to be as much as they can, it's going to push all of the other metal sort of back to where it needs to be, so that when we cut the quarter off, everything else has already been pushed out as much as it can. And now I'm just removing all of the seam sealer, which covers all of the spot welds, because I need to be able to drill out all of the spot welds for the rear quarter. To do this, I'm just using a wire wheel, and I've also used the wire wheel to grind off all of the silicone which was holding the window glass on, and underneath the silicone you can see it reveals all of the spot welds which I have to drill out. And then you can also see how much this rear quarter is actually pushed out. If you remember how pushed in it was before, it's actually quite crazy that they've managed to just push it out this much with a block of wood and a sledgehammer. Now I'm just running a cut down the edge of all of the rear quarter. This is just so I can cut off most of the metal, and it makes it a lot easier to access the inside of the panel to be able to just knock all of the spot welds out. Here, Connor is centre punching all of the spot welds, which just makes it easier to hit the centre of the spot welds when you're drilling them out. Now that all of those spot welds are drilled, once you get behind them with a chisel and a hammer, you can see how it just slices through all of them like butter. And then that was most of the quarter panel split away from the car. There's just this one little last edge, and you can see between the quarter panels there's this sort of sticky stuff, And I think it's to sort of absorb more of the impact when you're in a crash, I think, or to stop the vibrations between the rear quarter. This section that he's brazing on here is just held together with glue, so he's just breaking away all the glue from the quarter here, and then once this is free, that is the quarter completely removed. If the car was never set on fire, it was actually going to be a lot easier to fix than I thought it was, because the damage behind this quarter is nowhere near as bad as we thought it was going to be, especially down here at the bottom of the sill. There's sort of a little box section that you can see inside of there, which runs down the length of the car. And I thought all of that was going to be pushed in, but you can see here that it's not. So it's going to be a lot easier to replace this quarter than we initially thought it was going to be. And then I just need to go around all of the edges and get rid of the last little bit. So you can see I'm just drilling out the spot welds, going through with the chisel, and that last little piece of the quarter that I didn't cut off. Now, I did want to install the new quarter panel in this video and also get the full shell painted, but everything's just been taking a little bit longer than expected, and it's been quite a while since I've uploaded a video, so I'm just going to get this video out to you now. So this video is going to end here just with me removing the rest of this quarter panel, but in the next video, I'm going to have the new quarter put on the car. It's going to be painted in its new colour. It's going to be a one-of-one colour that no other M4 on the road will be painted in, and we're going to start putting it back together. So the next video is probably going to be the most exciting video. But if you made it this far in the video, thank you very much for watching, and I guess you'll see me in the next video. Now that's the majority of the quarter panel removed, I just need to go around all the edges and remove the last little bits. And I was quite surprised because down the sill section, so the lower half of the quarter, there's a little box section which holds most of the strength, and it was pushed in at the bottom of my quarter down here, and I thought this box section inside was going to be damaged, but you can see that it's actually